Hi, everyone, and welcome to Crushing Doubts Q&A every Monday, 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Pacific. I am here to talk with you about mind-body issues of any kind. You let me know what you need to know, and I'll be happy to answer. If you haven't already, though, click subscribe, ring the bell for notifications, hit like if you like what you're hearing, and put your comments below, and I will get back to you personally. I am here live on Instagram. I am here on Facebook as well, and on YouTube. So I will try to manage all three as things roll in. And as always, I do have some questions waiting in the wings, and some of them were from last week. I do try to, keep them so that they don't build up too long, so they haven't been hanging out too much. But as people start to ask questions, I'll bring them in. So let's bring up our first question. We got a question from YouTube already, so let's start with that. Oh no, okay, hold on, hold that up on the screen. We'll do this, and then I'll get to the YouTube one. So Yulia T says cognitive load. Hold on a second. Cognitive load is a huge theme for me. I carry the weight of the world on my little shoulders. I have not met Yulia's, but I'm going to take your word for it, Yulia. Some of it is real, work, caretaking, etc., but much of it I just take on because I do. Any tools, tips, videos on how to not accept this load? Okay, so this was a question actually that came up a couple weeks back when I did the cognitive load video. And the basic gist is that we carry a lot of weight in our own minds based on what we feel we need to be doing. And so, Yulia, I would probably need to know more specifically what it is that you're doing. But here's one tip that I can give to you to start out with. Ask yourself why you're doing what you're doing. A lot of times we don't think about what we're doing and why. And getting to the why of things is very important, because it could be that you're thinking, oh, I didn't realize it, but I was trying to impress this person and I don't need to do that. So think about why you're doing it. Think about whether you need to do it. And if you don't need to do it, don't. I know that sounds overly simplistic, and I'm not meaning to suggest it's easy, but I say this all the time. It's simple, but it's not easy. So one of the things that I think would be simple is ask yourself the question, why am I doing this? And do I need to do this? That's the main thing. So let's focus on that. Now, I'll get to the question coming in from YouTube in a second. Just wanted to say hi to John Tom Williams and Jasper Hitchcock. Good to see you guys on Instagram. Thanks for joining us. Okay, we've got a question from Mike P. Welcome back, Mike. Hey, Dan, in the PDFs, you say everyone's TMS is unique and specific for them. Some people get full relief from journaling, some from somatic work. Do you think for some people they need to address it from a more spiritual perspective? Yes, I'm sure that's true. And I guess the way that I would think about that, Mike, is that a spiritual perspective can mean lots of different things. But one way we could think about that is it's kind of a power column aspect. It is power column work to decide where we fit in the universe, in the world, what our purpose is. It's all power column stuff. So I think that's probably what you're finding, Mike. We've done a pretty good job of crushing most doubt, but the power column work is where you get to go a step further, even more. And the spiritual aspect is one aspect that people can have. So I guess I would say, though, Mike, let's think about what does that mean for you. I'd like to hear more because, you've got such great viewpoints on lots of things. Scotty Styles, I see you on Instagram. You're saying hello. Shout out to you. Good to see you. Let me know if you have any questions. We have a question coming in from YouTube. It is Tony Smith. Is ADHD a manifestation of TMS? Ooh, good question. I'll tell you what. I've learned a lot in recent years about ADHD. I went through a time where I thought it was so overdiagnosed that I started to really almost not believe in it, which is not true. There is ADHD. People do have that experience. When I think of ADHD, though, I think of it as a way of thinking. In fact, I just saw a really interesting, I think it was on TikTok. I saw somebody post something that they think of ADHD as like the opposite side of the spectrum from autism. And that kind of resonated with me because it's like sensory overload in a totally different way, where from a social perspective, you're able to do whatever you need to do, but there's a lot of overload. So is it a manifestation of TMS? I would say there's probably a lot of overlap, Tony. And in fact, it probably is a little confusing which is which. So you could have somebody who manifests as if they have ADHD, and really it is TMS. And you could also have somebody who's got a whole structure in their brain that's really set up around ADHD, and only some of it is TMS. What I will say is that it's always going to be some TMS. I want to remind everybody out there, TMS is tension myositis syndrome. That's what Dr. Sarno called originally the muscle tension issue that he found in the back and then other muscles, but it's been extended to just mind-body issues, or PPD, which is psychophysiological disorder. All these different terms we use, at different times. So I would say that some of the symptoms of ADHD are pretty routinely going to be mind-body, but there's a lot of overlap too, and it is its own thing potentially, at least with some people. So I hope that answered the question. It's a little bit of a complicated answer, so tell me if I missed the mark, Tony, and I'm happy to weigh in some more. Hello, Julie. Julie's saying hello. Julie Abby's saying hello on YouTube. Good to see you. Dorothy Pollack, sleep apnea. Just curious how that is looked at from a TMS perspective. Another great question. So there are certain things that I guess I would say this. Sleep apnea is something that usually a medical doctor needs to diagnose. Well, actually, always they need to diagnose. But it is sometimes overdiagnosed, just like ADHD. It's one of these things that doctors use as a kind of basket term for a whole bunch of things related to whether people are sleeping well. However, in my understanding, severe medical sleep apnea can be dangerous. And that's when I say, hey, go to a medical doctor, get that checked out. However, if they're saying it's not, really dangerous to you, then I think you can start to treat it more from a TMS perspective, because a lot of the kind of symptoms of sleep apnea could be related to TMS. But here's the thing. We're running into subjective words again. The question of sleep apnea, what do we even mean? I don't know. It depends on what one doctor says and one doctor thinks. They could be having a whole conversation about sleep apnea and mean something totally different. I think this is an example, and ADHD is another example of that, where we have to get on the same page about what we even mean about these terms. So sleep apnea is usually a thing where, in its severe form, where people actually stop breathing in their sleep and they wake up because they have stopped breathing and they need to wake up to breathe. I guess that would be severe and kind of true medical sleep apnea. But people talk about sleep apnea when it's things like you wake up, with a start and you're waking up a lot. That may not be sleep apnea. So I think we need to consider what's the actual meaning. I think, though, Dorothy, a lot of the time when people are talking about things like sleep apnea, they are talking about mind-body things much more often than not. There are true medical conditions, and you should always get those checked out if you have any doubt. But a lot of the time, sleep issues and even things that are getting labeled sleep apnea are mind-body. And you said, what does it look like from a TMS perspective? Well, I would look at it as kind of an elevated central nervous system response. It's a fight or flight response. It's a trauma response. You're kind of in the middle of I see. No, I meant a documented by a sleep study apnea. Okay. So documented sleep apnea. Even so, Dorothy, doctors are going to say, they're going to document certain things and they're going to label certain things. The problem we run into with doctors, and I rely on them for the life and death stuff, but in between, they're not factoring in the mind-body experience. So they could label something as sleep apnea, and I still don't know what they mean. I'd have to see very rigid terminology and a statement of how they're defining it to know what they mean. Dorothy's now saying, I do agree there are anxiety overlaps. The trauma response, I agree, is part of it. Yeah. Listen, there's so much that goes on physically that's a trauma response. So I would say it's even possible that sleep apnea that is purely medical might have developed initially from all of the emotional trauma we're experiencing. So there's a lot of overlap, and I think it's trauma related. But Dorothy, let me know if that kind of answers what you're thinking about. Okay, we've got a question from Julie Ebby. Can pets have TMS? Anxiety, alopecia, chronic sinusitis, allergies, etc. Absolutely, yes. Especially dogs. I've seen dogs with TMS, but cats as well. I think anything that really does have some form of consciousness is capable of having mind-body issues. Anxiety, I really like that we're starting in the mind-body community to talk about anxiety and depression as forms of mind-body issues, because a lot of times they're very, very physicalized. Chronic sinusitis, all these chronic infections, they often do relate to animals who have maybe been in a homeless shelter, had some form of trauma. They have conscious experience, and they hold on to it, and they remember. And, they're maybe better at being in the moment than your average human being, but they have all of those kinds of things. And so it's actually kind of good proof of mind-body issues in people that, their brains, they have brains. So if they've got brains, then their brains can affect their bodies. They're set up very much the same way as we are. They don't have I would say they don't have as much they don't have the higher level thinking as much, so they don't get into cycles with themselves around, some kind of more neurotic, higher level doubt. But they do have things like fear and worry and expectations. It's, even the classic Pavlov experiment of dogs salivating to the bell instead of just the meat. It shows that their brains work just like ours, and they come to expect certain things. So I would say we need to think about pets that way more often. And Julie adds, yes, I'm a dog lover. I believe vaccines cause issues. So I have to think more about whether the vaccines cause the issues, but maybe what you're saying, Julie, is the experience of getting the vaccines. That would be one thing, but you may also be saying the vaccine itself leads to things. So we'll talk more about that as we go. All right. Back to Mike P. I've been leaning more towards the power/spiritual realm because I feel I have mastered the emotional column and made huge progress on the doubt perspective. Yes, you have. I know for a fact. So now I feel as though the symptoms are coming from my deeper, real self, asking me to become in greater alignment with a deeper reality of consciousness and being. Hope this makes sense. It makes exact sense, Mike. I mean, what you're saying, I want to just say hi to Conte VJ. I think I have it right because I think your last name is Conte, if I remember correctly. Welcome on Instagram. Mike, what you're saying there is perfectly aligned with what I'm talking about the power column. When your emotions are pretty, well taken care of, and when you don't have a lot of doubt, and you're still looking at the symptoms and what they're doing there. We know that the symptoms are more of a distraction side of things when we're talking about the emotions column, but when it comes to the power column, they're a communication. And so, yes, they're communicating to you. They want you to be aligned with yourself. And so I really couldn't say it better myself. And bravo for you for sorting it out that way. And let me know if you need help thinking it through. But clearly, you're going to make the progress you need because you're thinking about it that way. I'll say this, Mike, though. Follow the clues of the symptoms. When you have a symptom, maybe it's telling you, hey, not maybe. It's definitely telling you you're not in alignment here. And try to figure out why not. I love to use the symptoms and the information that they provide. Dustin Arbo just joined on Instagram. Just wanted to say hi. You're waving. I'm waving to you. Okay, Tony Smith. She says, makes complete sense. Now, I want to back up, and we were talking about ADHD. Just wanted to make sure I'm on the same page so I'm not having a totally different conversation, especially the comparison with autism. Thank you. I have been hesitant to get the PDFs because I tend to take in the knowledge, but not do the work because it feels overwhelming inside my brain. Oh, that makes all the sense in the world. I have a lot of experience talking to people who have ADHD in some way. And it really is the case that information can be overwhelming. Tony, one thing I'll say is I hope that my system can be less overwhelming to you because it's well organized. But if you're finding information to be overwhelming, there's actually certain PDFs that I'd recommend more than others. And the one I'd recommend the most for you is the 3 columns one. The 3 columns one is not that long. It's very well organized. It gives you the mind body map. And then there's nothing else beyond that. I would not recommend getting the action steps if you're very overwhelmed by information, because that is a list of a huge amount of information. So I'd say take it one at a time, either the TMS basics and let that metabolize for a little bit, or go with the 3 columns. I think based on what we've talked about in the past, you'd be ready for the 3 columns. So that would be my recommendation. But it does make sense. People can get very overwhelmed when it comes to ADHD information. It's like they're getting too much information. And I don't want to be part of that. And that can happen even when it's not intended. It's just like, if it's too much, it's too much. But try to think of it as, my system is designed to start getting things organized. If you take it in 1 page at a time, 1 page 1 week, and just slowly metabolize it, great. But I certainly understand what you mean, Tony. I did want to mention today was the first day of seminars, and you can still sign up, actually, because you can catch up on video. We're going to have them on video on Vimeo. And so you missed the first day, but you also can sign up for the June 28th ones if you want to do that. And those are evening hours. If you need that more, there's going to be more seminars coming with time, but I'm really excited to get started with that. And also wanted to say, the place to go for that, if you want to sign up, is our website, which is www.crushingdoubt.org. And sorry, I got distracted by something coming in there. I've got too many things going on. I've got Instagram and all kinds of things. So you can go to the website to sign up for that. That's the way you can get the PDFs as well. Tony Smith says, thanks, Dan. Much appreciated. Thank you. I hope that was helpful. Kara Colarossi is saying, hi. Hi, Kara. Good to see you again. And now I got to scroll back up to where we were at. Okay, Dorothy Pollock says, I must have said, I hope that helps. She said, it does. Thank you. Okay, DP. That's first name D and then P. There we go. Does hypnotherapy help TMS? Okay, this is a great question. There are times where I'm going to tell you that I don't know enough about what something does to say for sure whether it does, but I can speculate. Now, I don't know how hypnotherapy works. Of course, I know what it is. I think it certainly could help with TMS. I mean, anything that can change your mind can help with mind-body issues. So if it can get in there and kind of shift some things around or open something up, that can definitely help with TMS. The only thing I will say, though, is that I think that sticking to the idea about the columns will help you to stay organized about how it's helping and what it is that you want to have help with. So, as an example, do you want to have help with an emotional breakthrough? That's emotions column work. Are you stuck feeling doubt in some way? Or are you stuck feeling fear in some way? Hypnotherapy, I think, is often very useful for fear-related things. So I would guess that if hypnotherapy is going to help, it's mostly going to help. And Julie Abbey says, I couldn't be hypnotized. I couldn't either, so I don't blame you. But I would say it's going to help most if you have an intention behind what it is that you want to be looking at. So I think if you want to go in, you want to think about, I'm going to do emotions column work, or I'm going to do doubt column work. When it comes to power, I don't actually know how that would work. You know, I was thinking about what Mike P said about being aligned with yourself, and can hypnotherapy help with that? I wouldn't say it can't. I just don't know enough about it. But great question. Mind Body Faith Fitness has joined on Instagram. Just wanted to say hi to you. I see you. Thanks for joining. Okay, Dorothy Pollock says, my son-in-law is an animal trainer and deals with anxiety issues with the shelter animals all the time as they get fostered, and he follows them. So, yeah, you know, people do wonder a lot about, do pets have this kind of thing? And it's unequivocally the case that they do, especially the more conscious beings. I mean, you're not going to find, like, I don't think you're going to find like a shrimp from the sea having these kind of issues. They don't have the kind of consciousness that would be needed for this. But for dogs and cats, and certainly like monkeys, animals that are higher up in the evolutionary chain, I guess, in terms of cerebral cortex, very likely to have TMS. Jasper Hitchcock is asking something from Instagram, so I'm going to take that. He said, is there any regression of our symptoms if we stop the work? Or integrated exposure? Jasper, can you say more what you mean? I want to make sure that I get the question. I'm going to read it over again. Is there any regression of our symptoms if we stop the work? Oh, I see. We're integrated. I think I understand, so I'm going to answer, but you tell me if I get this wrong. It depends. The answer to a lot of things is going to be it depends, because I'll tell you why. I don't mean that to be an unsatisfying answer, but the fact is that it really depends on how your mind is working. So you could stop the work and get no regression, or you could stop the work and get lots of regression. It really depends on what does it bring up for you. The thing I find helpful about the columns is that you can think in a more organized fashion. It tells you, how do I check up on myself about this? How am I regressing? I mean, that's a question you'd want to ask yourself, even if you're assessing regression. How am I regressing? Well, the 3-column system is nice in multiple ways, but one of them is you can say, have I regressed in the emotions column? Have I regressed in the doubt column? Have I regressed in the power column? And one thing I want to encourage you is regression is a relative term. And I'm thinking more in the power column when I'm thinking about this. There are many ways in which your power column is where you're going to figure out how quickly you can get back on track. The power column is the place where you can recognize, oh, I'm off track. I'm out of power here. I don't feel good in this interaction. And that's the place where you can get right back on very quickly. Actually, the doubt column is really good for that too. The emotions column is a little bit harder that way. And it's interesting because in typical mind-body work in the mind-body community, people are focused very much on the emotions, but that's not the easiest way to turn things around. The easiest way to stop regression or get right back on the horse is to assert power or reduce doubt. So I hope I answered your question, Jasper. Tell me if I got it wrong. Carolyn Rubin just joined on Instagram. Wanted to say hi to you. Okay, jumping back to YouTube. Matt Anderson, welcome back, Matt. Good to see you here. He says, for power column work, I know it's about chasing your dreams consciously, but do you find people finding full relief after actually getting to the point of desired life, or is just coming to realize what you truly want powerful enough to get full relief? Wow, great question. Can we leave that up there, Herbert? I just want to make sure this is not that the other questions weren't good, but this was a longer one and I need to think about it a little bit. So I do find that to get full relief from symptoms, usually it's just, well, I would say it's about two things. One, you do want to come to realize what you truly want, but you also want to be trying to enact it. So Matt, tell me if this makes sense to you. You not only want to be aware of it, but you want to be in a conscious process of moving towards it in some way. If you're not moving towards it and you're just aware of it and you feel stifled, well, that can bring up symptoms. But it definitely is the case that you don't need to fully realize all of your dreams. It's more about being in a process of going after your dreams. That's how you're aligned with yourself. You're not only aligned with yourself when you meet your dreams, you're more aligned with yourself when you're going for your dreams. And I think that fits with what Mike P was saying too. So I hope that makes sense. The idea is know what your dreams are. Try to be powerful in that way and move towards power, and you should get a lot of relief. But as always, it depends on the moment. You could find that you thought you were chasing your dreams, but really you've lost your way in the power column. And, oh, I'm not being powerful here. So I would say no matter what you're doing, whether you're dreaming or not, you want to be paying attention to your columns. Think in terms of the columns, and it's so organizing. Jasper, I see your thumbs up, so sounds like I got it, and I'm glad. Great question. Okay, Matt, let me know if that made sense to you. Julie Ebby says, I think what you said today is that there is so much information about TMS, and we get overwhelmed trying to do some of each each person's, because you're getting TMS information from many, many sources. And I try to be a reliable source in a particular way that I'll say in a second. But she said, excited to do only yours and the few things I've found helpful. So Julie's actually referring, she's, she came to the seminar. So one of the things that we talked about is that at a certain point, it's really time to choose some things. And this is a tricky thing, because what I'll say about it is, the reason I think people can safely choose my system over other people's system is that my system includes their system. It doesn't shut it out. So say with journal speak, I'm all for journal speak. It's just that I apply it in the emotions column. So it doesn't shut that out. My system is inclusive of the good things from the other systems. So, and it's also organizing. So as a result, I think that people can, if they really feel like what I'm saying makes sense, they don't have to follow every single person and check out everything, and which is good because it's too overwhelming. I also think, if you find a system is too narrowly focused, not going to help you that much. You can take what you can take from it, but look for something that's broader, something that captures the whole picture better. And I like to think that's mine, but keep pushing me on that and I'll keep growing it. Okay, we've got a question coming in from Instagram from Carolyn Rubin. How do I manage, let me just make sure there's not one above it. Okay. How do I manage trying to work in being less the columns effectively? Hold on a second. How do I manage trying to be less hypervigilant and still work the columns effectively? I see. Okay. Let's see. How do I manage I'm got to think about this one. How do I manage trying to be less hypervigilant and still work the columns effectively? Okay. So Carolyn, here's the thing. I get what you mean. When you're working on a system, you can end up being hypervigilant. You can be hyper-focused. And we've talked about attentional TMS, or I've talked about that in one of my podcasts. Sometimes you need to stop thinking. So this is another reason I like my system. Once you understand the columns well, you can dip into them and you can dip back out. You don't need to be thinking about them all the time. One thing we're going to need to help you with is to trust that you've integrated that. And that's not always so easy to do. I understand that. But what I would say is keep asking your questions, because it's by having your questions answered that you will be able to put things to rest or kind of leave them more on autopilot. Shandor Raylans. I'm always worried I'm butchering names, and I may be, but I just wanted to say hi to you. I see you there. Thanks for joining. Okay, we have a question from YouTube. Mira Lee, you mentioned follow the messages. How do you approach that when the pain is constant? I know the triggers, and when things are flaring, I can pinpoint the cause, but it's never completely gone. Okay, great question, Mira. Let's leave this one up here too. This is another thing about my columns. Chronic symptoms are doubt column work. So when I'm talking about following the messages, I am talking about emotions column work or power column work. I'm not talking about doubt column work, generally speaking. Occasionally, there are messages to be sent about when doubt has gone up. But as you said, if the pain is constant, nothing's changing. So I would say you're working with a different part of the system. This is the doubt column part of the system. So the thing that I talk to people about chronic conditions, Mira, is that I like to change the word, and it's not just semantics. There's something very important in this wording. I don't call it chronic. I call it consistently acute. What I mean by that is, yes, it is always there, and it's always exactly the same. But if you're thinking of it as consistently acute, it's the same moment by moment by moment. And the reason that's important is that if it's moment by moment, you will eventually be able to break it. The way to do it is to work on doubt. And Mira, I don't know how familiar you are with my system, so we can certainly talk about it. Anybody who wants to reach out to me can at dan@crushingdoubt.org. Certainly let me know. You can comment on this. I'll get back to you with questions personally. So lots of ways to do this, but I think that I would encourage you to look at my doubt column work or one of the podcasts on doubt. There are 3 levels of doubt. One is this a mind-body issue or not? The second is, I know it's a mind-body issue, but I don't know how far mind-body issues go and whether they can be stopped. And that would be, I hear that second level of doubt in what you're saying, which is, how do I know that this could even be stopped? But then the third level of doubt is in relation to you yourself. Is there something in me? Is there something in my pain profile? Something that could stop me from getting better? So those are all about doubt. What I hear in what you're saying, Mira, is you need a distinction between chronic issues and the doubt column versus following the message and the emotions or the power column. You can't follow messages if it's always the same. You're totally right on. Completely agree with you. But let me know if that makes sense to answer your question. All right, Matt, I'm glad that what I said to you made sense. I'm flying through the questions, so I can't even quite remember what we talked about. Let's scroll back up. What was I saying? Oh, yes. Chasing your dreams. Okay, good. I'm glad that worked out. Okay, we've got a comment from Care Paravel. I could be saying this totally wrong, and I'm sorry if I am. And we've interacted before, so I do know who you are. I just don't know how to pronounce your name right necessarily, but we can work on that. Okay, I got a virtual reality headset recently and can tell it will help me a lot with meditation, something I struggle with. Could you see VR being used as a tool for curing chronic pain in the future? Oh, absolutely. I think that's a great idea. It's something that I have certainly given some thought, and my business partner and I, Greg, we could get into that at some point. But absolutely, anything that can alter your mindset can be a huge boost in our work against mind-body issues. In the end, it is about what are we thinking, why, and when. And so virtual reality is a way to really change things. It's a way to imagine a different reality or even kind of experience it, at least virtually speaking. I could see that being really a cool thing. It's also something that I'd love to see studies on. And, it's not my strong suit to do the actual studies. So I'm very grateful to the people who do them. Howard Schubiner is doing a great job kind of leading a lot of these things. I believe Alan Gordon's involved in a lot of these things. I know Dave Clark is involved in a lot of these things. There are people doing the research work, and it's incredibly appreciated. But I say, hey, let's check out virtual reality as well. Okay, Dorothy, you are writing. I loved the idea of the structural framework versus other approaches I have used that went nowhere. It really appealed to my approach to things. I have been really surprised at how unable I seem to be to fill in emotion/doubt, etc. I thought I'd see myself all over the PDFs as I did in the Sarno book and fill in the blanks. It's kind of like feeling a breakthrough is right around the corner, but just cannot click over, if you know what I mean. I do know what you mean, but we'll get you there. She says, I started thinking maybe I'm trying too hard to deal with this intellectually. I know I am not unique in my myriad of errors people make in doing this work. Absolutely, Dorothy. One thing is, don't get discouraged. I get what you're going through. It can feel like it's a little bit hard to find that tangible place. But here's the thing. Sarno's works are especially good at describing goodism and who we are. It's not, so my PDFs, they mention goodism. They talk about goodism. That's a very important way that we can recognize who we are, see ourselves in the pages, and have some confidence in this. But one thing to keep in mind is I'm trying to fill in blanks that haven't been filled in. Sarno filled in those blanks. There's so much he said that's so great that I just kind of incorporate it. I say, Sarno said this, he's right. I totally agree. The things you're going to see in my PDFs are more describing the nuts and bolts of how your mind-body experience is working. So you might not be described as well in those pages, but what's happening to you is what should be described well in those pages. So let me know if that makes sense to you. I think that the last thing I'll say about it is in terms of a breakthrough. If you're feeling like a breakthrough is right around the corner, you're not wrong. But the question is how. And you will get the answer to that question by asking your questions. So I'm glad you asked here. But I want you to see if you can put it into a question. What is it you would need to know to get that breakthrough? Or what is it that's missing in your mind? These are tough questions I'm asking you, but I'm encouraging you to try to get back to me on those questions. Questions are the way we get the answers. Miralee says, yes, doubt is my biggest challenge. Thank you. All right, Mira, that makes perfect sense. That makes, and as I often say, you make sense and this makes sense. My system can make sense of the whole thing. What you were describing in terms of chronicity, yep, I went right to doubt and boom, yep, it's your biggest challenge. There are ways to fight that, Mira, and actually one of them is I actually am going to start in the second day of the seminar, which is tomorrow. I'm starting up on hammering doubt. Hammering doubt is so important. I come at it from multiple angles to show you there is no reason that we should be doubting mind-body stuff as the main cause of all of this stuff. And all of the other theories we can throw out, and we can throw out for good reason, because I'm listing reason after reason after reason. So Mira, I don't know if you want to do this, and you certainly don't have to, but if you want to come to the seminar, I will hammer doubt for you. And even if you don't want to come to the seminar, I'll hammer it for you. You can check out my podcasts. It will be in my book. It's in my PDFs. This show is called Crushing Doubt, and it's called that for a reason. So we'll get it done. Dorothy says, okay, I'll reread them tonight with that approach. Thank you. Okay, so yeah, Dorothy, keep me posted on what you think about it. Definitely don't think of the PDFs like Sarno. They're not going to describe you like Sarno, because he already described you. He described you perfectly. It's one of the main things that helped with me with Sarno, and I'm so appreciative of it. But you already got that from him. Now let's see if you can get something from me that's different, filling in a different spot. Okay, back to Instagram. Jasper says, before attempting an action that causes pain, is there something I can do to disarm the brain? Absolutely. So Jasper, what you're referring to is something that I think of as triggers. When I'm going to try an action that I know could lead to a symptom, I get in there. I push back against doubt even before I do it. So you're saying, is there something I can do to disarm the brain? Yes. You want to think very actively about doubt. You want to say to yourself, okay, this is going to lead to doubt. But the fact, and here's the nice rule of thumb you can say to yourself, it could hurt, but it's not going to harm. You're not going to hurt yourself, even if it hurts. And you could look at it as, this is a learning opportunity. This is a chance to conquer a trigger. Every time we conquer a trigger, we get stronger. But conquering triggers is not easy. And there are times we will try to conquer a trigger and we will have a flare-up from that fear. So, FDR said the only thing we have to fear is fear itself. He was right about that, but it doesn't make fear easy. So I certainly understand it. What I would do is try to analyze what is the fear about and push back on it. Here's one thing I'll say also, just a little tip for everybody. To beat TMS, to beat mind-body issues, you have to be determined. You have to decide, I'm not losing this. You have to be competitive with it. Go ahead and say, I'm going to beat this. And that's a big part of how you'll be in a different mind space when you try that action. It's okay to be scared. It's even okay if it hurts, even though I wish it wouldn't. But what really matters is, do you make a gain? Maybe it hurts, but it doesn't hurt as much as you expected. And then the next time it hurts even less. And then you realize this really is going down. I will be able to do this. And then before you know it, you're doing it. So, Jasper, let me know if that helps. Okay, Julie Ebby says, do you believe doubt is phantom brain pain? Another TMS person does, and that we can't get rid of doubt. Or do we just turn our doubt into power? Okay, a lot of great questions in there. Leave them up there because this has multiple questions to it. Do I believe doubt is phantom brain pain? I think I would need to know more, Julie, what you mean by that. Um, but I guess I would say this, and I'll answer it, and you tell me if I got to the heart of what you were asking. It's a brain question, but I'm asking if I got to the heart of it. I don't think that there is phantom pain. I mean, even with like phantom limb syndrome, is that really phantom pain? It's a phantom limb. The limb's not there, but the pain is there. It's firing in the brain. So I tend to think of it as there's no such thing as phantom pain in the brain. Everything is real pain. It's all from actual pain synapses firing. So I wouldn't say that doubt would be that either, because I don't think anything is, but I think doubt is a whole different ball of wax. You said this other question, another TMS person does think of doubt as phantom brain pain. So I'm interested in who that is and what they said, but just out of interest. But the part of the phrase that jumped out at me is they also believe and that we can't get rid of doubt. No, that I totally disagree with. We can get rid of doubt. And in fact, that's our job, or at least it's my job. You can come to me about it. It is our job to get rid of doubt. And there's no reason that we couldn't. And I'll tell you why. Because these things all exist in a scientific and logical world. It all makes sense. If there was no making sense of things, then we couldn't get rid of doubt. I'll give you an example. Do we know that God exists? Listen, I'm not trying to get religious, but generally speaking, no, we don't have proof one way or another on that. We just don't. Can we get rid of doubt there? No. Can we get rid of doubt that gravity exists? Yes, gravity exists. End of story. It's a scientific fact. I can show you. I can pick something up and drop it, and gravity functions. Well, this is the same way. This is science and logic. So can we get rid of doubt? Anywhere where science and logic exist, yes, we can get rid of doubt. We just need the theory that answers everything. I think I'm onto it, and that's what I'm trying to give to you. The question also is, the last question is, or do we just turn doubt into power? You can turn doubt into power, but ultimately you got to go crush doubt directly. And that brings me to Molly Makes. Welcome here, Molly. Good to see you. I've seen you on the comments, but I haven't seen you here before, so welcome. She says, I need to crush doubt. That is tough. It is tough, Molly, but it is what I do, and I will help you with it, and I know exactly how to do it. I will find the angles that work for you, and that's the thing. We ultimately want to find the angles that work for each individual mind. So all we have to do, Molly, I say all, not meaning to make it sound like it's so easy, but it is this simple. I say that all the time. We've got to bring the questions out of you. We got to get to know what are those questions. I don't mean to be plugging this too much, but it really is a great way to get a good answer to this. Molly, if you wanted to join the seminar tomorrow, we are going to start crushing doubt. That is the next 2 sessions are the ones where we really hammer doubt from every side. Every angle. If you want to do it, it's on www.crushingdoubt.org. You can see the video from today. You can see it tonight. It'll be up on Vimeo. So, but even if you don't want to do that, you can join a later seminar. You can get my PDFs. We can, interact in whatever way you need to. But yes, you need to crush doubt. It may be tough, but I promise you, doubt is no match for me, because I have mastered it over and over and over in me and other people. It is exactly what I do. You came to the right place. So let's talk about it. Let me know what your doubt is, Molly, actually. You can feel free to raise questions. We're probably going to run out of time today, but I can store it for next time, or we can interact over email. Again, it's dan@crushingdoubt.org. And we'll make sure to take care of your doubt. Dorothy asked, is the book coming out in 2021? I sure hope so. We're getting close to it. There are a couple of projects that I had to put in front of it just because of the nature of how I needed to help people. Like getting the website up was one of them. Getting the seminars all set to go, that was the next. But actually, the book is next. And I'm in the middle of chapter 10 out of 12. So I am very, very excited to do that. I can't wait to get it out to you guys. Julie Abbey says, okay, good to know. I need to get rid of doubt. Yes, you do, Julie, and we will hammer away at it. Dorothy's asking, is the seminar interactive or more like a webinar? It's a little of both. It is a webinar for usually about the first, well, I've only done one day of it, but the way it was today, we did 50 minutes of webinar, and then we did about 25 minutes of Q&A. And it could become even more interactive over time, because eventually we're going to get into doing actual mind-body mapping and figuring out, what do your emotions column look like? What about the doubt column? What about the power column? What are your action steps? What's your core narrative? And we'll get into that specifically. So hope that is helpful. Okay, Chuck Brown Productions, good to see you. It's Terry, I think. Good to see you. All right, she says, hello again. Wondering if you have some suggestions for how to stop the focusing and therefore fear of when one feels a little hint of a symptom, I think was the little typo there. So, yeah. Terry, that's a great question. When you start to feel the little hint of a symptom, that's doubt work right there. And I understand that can be tough. And a little hint of a symptom can grow into a big one if you get afraid of it. What I would tell you is, even if you're just aware of the fear, just have it in your mind that fear makes it worse. Just that. And that will keep it from getting big. It never gets big when you just don't get that afraid of it. So that's my number one tip with that. There's more I can say, but let's start with that. Just remind yourself, all I need to do is be aware of it, and that's it. So, Jasper, you said that what I said was totally helpful, and that was great. So I'm glad. Okay. All right. Okay. Yes, there is time set aside in the seminar for interaction, though, every day. So, Dorothy, if that's what you're looking for, you will get some of that. Okay, Molly Makes, you say, we're going to need to wrap up here, but I am mostly on YouTube since I have a channel here. All right, well, I'll check out your channel, Molly. She says, my doubt is that my symptoms are not physical as much as, well, the brain, basically. So that's kind of the basic level of doubt. And I get it, but actually, Molly, that first level of doubt is the one that gets slammed the most in the seminar. So I would certainly consider it. Let's talk about it. You can reach out to me if you have more questions about it, or check it out on the website. Okay. Dorothy says, is there a day-by-day description, like a table of contents for each of the 8 days? I feel like the seminars are not totally clear to me as the offering. Perhaps I missed this information. That's actually a great idea, Dorothy. I would say that I can do that. Let me get that together for you, but I can email that to you so you have a description of that. And anybody who wants that, I'll get it out to you. But I will think about actually putting it out there in that way, because that does seem like it would be helpful for people. So thanks for doing that. Last thing, comment from Chuck Brown Productions on Instagram. Thank you. And hearing you speak of the seminar makes me so excited for the PM one, by the way. Oh, that's right. You're signed up for that one. Great. So I look forward to that. You're going to get the information you need. And these questions have been so great. I'm very appreciative of all you guys. Jasper says, likewise. That's good to hear, Jasper. Glad to hear it. So you guys are great. Thank you for bringing your questions. I'm glad we got some good time together. And I will be here same time next week. As always, Mondays, 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Pacific. Thank you again. If you haven't already, even though a lot of you, I think, have, click subscribe, ring the bell for notifications, hit like if you like what you're hearing, and put your comments below. And I'll get back to you personally. Now, that's on the YouTube side of things. But if you tend to listen to these things, or if you're on Instagram and you now do want to go listen, you can find it on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, most podcast frameworks you can find it on. And if you do that, if you're willing to, it would really help us to give us a 5-star written review. And that really helps us get notice. And we are trying to get to a place where we really are changing the national and international discussion. So those help. So thanks, everybody. I really appreciate you all and look forward to talking to you soon.